Okay, today we are talking about makeup tools for beginners. These are not like exact product recommendation. These are more like what type of makeup tool I think is gonna make a beginner's experience easier, because I feel like for makeup tools there's 1,000 different types, and you open a brand's page, there are like 100 types that all look moderately different but also kind of the same, so you might be lost like what is like more suitable for beginners. So today let's share some of my thoughts. Of course I can only speak for myself, and I feel like sometimes my makeup taste is a little bit weird. Listen to me considering that, considering it's just my own opinion. It might not apply to everybody. So without much to say, let's talk about foundation application. I personally don't use primer, and even if you do, I feel like it's just like a finger application thing. So for foundation, I would say it's okay to use finger still. So if you are using finger, make sure you choose a foundation that's sheer. For example, something like a skin tint or something like this. So, if it's a foundation, it's a sheer one like this. For skin tint, I feel like actually in general, your finger work better a lot of times than a sponge. So to be honest, the general advice would be use your finger as much as you can. Your finger is better than a lot of tools and it's free. So if you have a foundation, a normal liquid foundation, not a super sheer one and not like a tint type of thing that you kind of need a tool to apply. I think both of these two could be good, like a foundation puff and a sponge. If you look at these two and you feel like the puff is a little bit easier and you are still trying to find a foundation to use, then just buy a cushion foundation. A cushion foundation is like designed for a puff and it has a puff in it. Mine is from Tirtir, and their puff, the first couple usage, you might think is like super hard, like kind of stiff, harder to use. But after like one wash or two, they just like soften a lot and it's a lot easier to use. And I really like this puff. If you like this kind of puff, just buy a cushion foundation. That's as easy as it is. But if not, I think like a normal sponge like this that you have to wet it can be good. Like it's very easy to use. It's just like you have to wet it. That is like a little bit of extra amount of effort. I prefer this because I don't have to wet it. But the things with this, I still kind of wet it, but it's not like under the water and like kind of rinse it. I just use whatever spray I have. It can just be water, like clean water. It would be okay. Or whatever, like skincare spray you have. But one thing I have to say is like you got to make your puff clean. I see a lot of people use their puff like for weeks without washing. Somebody's face are okay, but I feel like I just prefer to wash it after 1 to maximum 3 usage, so that I don't break out from all the bacteria that grows on a sponge. And that's also why I recommend just using fingers, because like your fingers, you can always wash it, it's always clean. Just wash it before the makeup application. I smear it as if my finger is a spatula. If you are on the internet a lot and you see a lot of tutorials, maybe you'll see people use like a spatula. I have those as well, but I don't think that is for beginner. You could just use your finger as if it's a spatula. I'm like this, and I go like this, and I then spread it. That way is the most even. So before you apply with your tools, this is already spreading it. And this way, it's making sure your sponge is absorbing as minimal of a amount of product as possible. This one I personally really like, doesn't really absorb that much. You just apply like a glob on the skin, like you squirt it on your skin directly and you just apply. That glob of product can be soaked into your sponge way more than if you spread it out. And if you buy a sponge that's like a light colored, you are gonna find the glob of foundation way harder to clean out of the sponge. Like you could like have a couple wash, but it's still kind of there. Normally if you have a cream blush, you're gonna apply at this stage. But for me, my recommendation for a cream blush is to just use your fingers. Like that's it. I don't really recommend to buy a brush for that, because first of all, I don't think it's necessary. You know, right now I have like plenty of brushes just for cream blush, but I always still just use my finger. So, you know, just use your fingers. No need to buy a brush when you are a beginner just getting into this. Today, let's skip that part because I more want to show like the powder part, because the powder blush you cannot apply with your finger, right? So let's get into powders for beginner. For my logic, I probably better to recommend like a puff, because normally loose powder like this come with a puff, so you don't have to buy anything. But the thing is, I feel like a puff like this is hard to control how much you use, because there's like numerous amount of hairs on this, so you don't know how much is in the hair. You could like try to even it out after you take the product, of course that's possible. But again, like sometimes I can see a little bit of product here, but it might be like deep into the puff and it's like a lot, and I'm applying it, it's like a block of thick powder, and I go to blend it with the puff. In that process, you can like just drag your foundation around and make it look uneven. That's possible. So what I do is I use a brush. It's just way easier, and if you have like a pressed one, a brush can work for both. And it's, again, in my opinion, easy to control how much you use. I guess if your oily skin is not as big as of an issue, if you have dry skin, you don't want to use too much of powder, right? So what I do is I always make sure that there's some powder here. If it doesn't have any, I just close the lid and I turn it around, make sure there's some coming out, and I turn it back and I open the cap. Of course, make sure you're doing that with your cap closed. So I'm taking some from here. It's looking uneven, right? But I have this lid. I just spread, like kind of blend it into the hair, like using the lid. Now it's even. So when it's even, I go to the area that I want the powder to be most concentrated, which is around my nose, like in between my forehead and on my eyelid area. So I always start with here. And because my skin is like not dry, so I need a lot more. So at this stage, I might feel like I need more. I just do the same. And I start with this part and in between of my eyebrow. So whatever is left here, I just like apply it on my forehead. The same with around my nose. Like concentrate it there and give the rest of it to the cheeks and stuff. And now the skin is set where it needed to be set. And you can see it's like very easy to control with like a brush because you just tap it. Don't swipe it because the foundation is not set yet. Before you apply powder, you don't want to drag it around. Okay, that's that. By chance, if you have a powder foundation, they usually come with puffs. Those are okay as well. A brush for powder foundation, it's still easier than a puff because you can control it way better than a puff. Because really, with a puff, a lot of times you don't know how much product is on the puff. With the powder foundation as well. So I just use this type of like fluffy, but it has a lot of hairs, so like a little bit dense at the same time, and it's kind of flat. I feel like for a powder foundation, a flat brush like this is way better than like a round one. I think those type of foundation brush is for liquid, but for powder, the flat one is better. But I don't feel like a lot of beginners are beginning with powder foundation. Could just easily try the puff first. If that's not suitable for you, then maybe try find a brush. So for eyebrow, I don't recommend you to buy any tools for eyebrow unless it's just like, you know, a brush to like brush the hair upwards and stuff. I recommend to just get a pencil. It's the most easy one. You don't need to buy, you know, the eyebrow brush. That's a process to figure out what type of brush it's easier to use for you because it's very specific. I have a lot of eyebrow brush like for eyebrow powders that I love, but I just don't feel like comfortable to share that because that's like very, very personal. Like I have this type of eyebrow powder I like to use, therefore this brush is good for this and that brush is good for that. It's like to each individual product. And don't buy the pomade. The pomade is really for not like a beginner use. I think those are for like advanced users. Eyeshadow, same thing. Just use the thing that allow you apply with the finger as much as possible. For example, I really like Japanese, like these like little quads because they usually is a very creamy formulation that is just okay to apply with your fingers. And they normally are not fully matte. Fully matte eyeshadows kind of hard to apply with your finger. So these are almost like satiny shimmers. They don't look like a very like glittery or pearlized finish on your eyes. These are really just satin. But the fact that it's not fully matte is just making it way easier to apply with your finger. But if you would love a brush, make sure you get a brush that's suitable for your eye shape. Okay, I have like, I feel like mid-sized eyes. Like it's not big, but it's not like that small. But my eyelid space is pretty small. So if I would follow the Western people like with very deep set eyes doing like a crease, I'm always buying brush that's way bigger than my eyelid. Like the brush is covering my whole eyelid, like don't know what I'm doing. So for me, buy a brush that's like half, maybe half of the, you know, this space, your eyelid space. So it's still easier to blend because it's not too small. It's still half of the width, I guess, of your eyelid. At the same time, it's not too big. You still have room to see your movement with your brush. That's my recommendation. And make sure the brush is not too dense and not too like widespread, like it's like super puffy. That can be a little bit hard to control as well. So the way you can tell it is by how you know, how spread this top part is. So if this look like super straight, then it means it's not fluffy at all. You might have like a hard moment to blend it. But if this is like the hair is like all the way like this, that's too fluffy. So this is like, you know, not straight up and down, but it's also not like super widely spread, and the hair is not too long. If the hair is like very long, you can also lose control. The width is just a little bit shorter than the length, I guess. If the length is too long, too much longer than the width, then that's a little bit, the hair is a little bit too long. So that's my criteria. I'm just gonna, you know, take the product normally, because this is not like a super pigmented eyeshadow anyways, and for beginner, don't buy something that's super pigmented. Like I said, it's like around half of my width of my eyelid. It's just easier to control in a lot of ways. Like I could get into the corner, so if I want to darken my outer corner, I could do that by just holding the brush a little bit differently. I could use this brush for under eyes as well, again because the size is not too big. And this way you also avoid to have to buy too many brushes. Okay, it's easy to do, like to buy too many, more than you need when you're a beginner. I did that. And with the shimmers, I just use my finger. Again, use your finger as much as you can. Okay, for cheeks, I feel like a lot of people are confused with like what brush for blushes. I just feel like maybe as well you just buy a cream one. You know, you could just blend with your finger, because for powder you cannot do that. But let's say you prefer a powder one, or you already have one. General makeup choices for beginner, just don't buy something too pigmented, anything too pigmented, okay? Other than like obvious things like eyeliners or mascaras, that thing is right, like you have to buy something pigmented. But yeah, other than that, like anything like this, buy a sheer one. So how to choose a brush for that? Actually, my favorite is any type of this type of dual fiber brushes. I think in the Western beauty community they call it like stippling brush or something like that. Like anything dual fiber like this. It almost always look like a different color on the top and than the bottom. So you know, they often look like this actually. Like a part of it you can see is like black blending with like a white, and on the top is a different texture. It's a different color and texture. They just look like this. Because the way the hair was designed, it pick up way less product than other brushes. If you are always thinking I might applying too much, this can definitely help. And because the hair is kind of loose, but it's like an even bigger surface and it's like an even distribution of hairs, it kind of already did a part of the blending for you. Because it's again sheer and a small amount of product that distribute evenly on a large surface, so you kind of just stamp it on and it's already blended. Not so much blending that you needed to do, you know. I feel like this type of brush just make it way easier. And in general, I really like this slanted shape. I think this shape is, you know, easier for everyone, but especially for beginners, because a round brush, sometimes you don't know like what angle to use that brush, right? Like slanted brush, they just tell you like use it like this. You know, it's just way easier. Let's say you have a blush that you think you cannot get enough pigment from it, then buy something that's like natural hair. So gold hair would be the one that's most ideal. They pick up product more effectively than a brush like this, or just synthetic hairs in general. And I love like a, you know, one like this, a slanted one. Pick up like this, gently tap it, and I tap it on. This blush itself is not very pigmented, but I feel like you can tell on the camera this side is still more color than this side because this brush pick up more. Let me match. And that's it for the powder blush part. I don't want to just give too much recommendations because I generally don't think you need it as a beginner. Highlight, if you're using like a balm like this, again, don't need any tools, just use your finger. But if you are using like a powder, let me find one. My recommendation would be just use your blush brush. It's the same thing. You're just applying it in a different area, like on this area with a different motion. So for highlight, you apply like this. For blush, you apply like this. That's the only difference. You don't need to buy a separate highlight brush. Like I have numerous amount of highlight brushes, but till this day, I still just a lot of times just use the same brush. You are applying it in the same area, you really don't need another brush. And also the thing is, a lot of highlight brush is like very small, so you are just applying a stripe of product, and I don't think that look very pretty. I don't know, I feel like things on the face, unless it's very intentional, it should be all blended. Unless you're going for the look that's like a stripe of a highlight, that's okay? That's personal preference. I'm just talking about me, I don't like that. So, I just take a highlight. Again, don't buy something that's super intense. Unless you like a very beaming highlight, that's another story, right? But still, even in that sense, you can still use your blush brush. You just like tilt your head to help to target this area with your brush, and you just gently swipe it. Don't like go all the way in there, like make all of the hair like dented. Don't do that. Just use the tip of your hair. And I think that look pretty blended, right? You don't need more than one brush for your cheeks, unless you're buying one from for the cream purpose as well, if you want that. But I feel like in general you just need one for powder, and that's it. Like, see that? Like, how natural is that? And I think that's pretty much it. For lips, you don't need to buy like a brush. No matter what people say, okay? No matter what people say. Like, a lot of times there are like a new type of lip brushes on the market. You don't need that. Just use the lip by itself. It's okay. You don't need a separate tools for that. A lot of makeup artists do use a brush because they are doing makeup in a different way, and they are using one product for multiple clients. Therefore, they have to use some type of tool. They cannot use like just the same applicator or the same bullet for every single one. That's unsanitary, right? They have to use a brush. But for normal human being, you don't need anything for your lip tools wise. So that's pretty much it. I guess I could make this video way longer than it is, but to be honest, I just feel like for tools, for beginner, just buy as little amount as you can. You really don't need much. If we're talking about essentials, right? Like I said, you could just buy a cushion foundation with puff. Then the puff part is done. And if you're using a powder foundation one, you could just use the puff come within that, even though that might not be like the most ideal. But as a beginner, maybe try out before you invest in anything. And for eye brush, just one that's like a mid size that you can use it for everything, and a powder brush. I mean, I guess for this it's the same thing. You can use a puff, but I feel like for this purpose, specifically, a powder brush is a little bit better. So I guess when it comes to the absolutely essential, in my opinion, it's just 3. I could just complete my whole makeup with just 3 of these brushes, and I don't need more. It's more than enough. And if you're like more advanced, you could have like 6. Like this is the one I'm currently using with a cream brush, but to be honest, the frequency is not very high, so maybe let's drop this. 5 then. And it's giving the fact that you're using a powder foundation one. If you're not using one, then 4. Like, and this is like advanced beginner, because you have one that's like picking up more pigment than this type of brush. These 2 are overall face brush. You could use this for bronzer, for contour, for blush, for highlight, for everything. Just keep a makeup towel near you. Just if you are worried about the color to transfer and or look muddy because they are all blended together on the brush, just wipe it in between. You're good. So, you know, at the most for beginner, I think 4 is more than enough. And that would be my recommendation. Again, maybe better to, you know, recommend more to make the video longer, but I think that's unnecessary. 3 or 4, you're all set. And I think that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching.